Now adjust the volume control so that the sound can be heard in all parts of the room.
This is the Protect Your Assets podcast.
You get the idea?
It's on the internet.
Make him the cutest that I've ever seen.
Go on.
Give him two lips like
It's like no cheese I've ever tasted.
tell him that his
Here's the Sandman.
over Sandman.
Your 401k could be one of your largest assets, and the question that you want to know, is it protected from a lawsuit? Well, if you live here in California, you probably heard that your retirement accounts are protected, but are they? And if so, how much? We're going to cover that today. It is an exciting, interesting question, and it's changed once again. So if you're interested in if your retirement account is protected from creditors, and this show is just for you, good morning. I am David Hollander. People around here call me the Sandman. For those of you just joining us, welcome. So this has been going on since the 90s. I remember hearing this when the O.J. Simpson trial was going on. Remember, after that was over, he kept his retirement accounts, and people were saying, well, how is that possible when he got convicted in the civil court and owed all that money to the family and they couldn't collect? And so this became a rumor that periodically people bring up, which is that they think their IRA account, their 401k, their retirement accounts, that they're protected from creditors, and they just don't worry about that. So they go on and do other asset protection to try and protect what they have from anything that could possibly happen outside of, say, an insurance policy or something like that. And so people wonder, and they ask good questions, but don't just assume it's true, because here in California, and there were quite a few cases which you're going to like to hear about today. We're going to talk about some personal stories of these people who aired all their debts on the internet. You can just find them and read all about it. Interesting cases. So we're going to go through each one today and where the current status of the law is. The new law that just went into effect January 1st of 25. This was Assembly Bill 2837. Maybe you've heard about it and how it extended the coverage of this fiction that I'll say is out there that's spreading around. And so if you want to know more about it, well, we're going to cover that today to find out if your 401k is protected from creditors. Now, let's get started. Well, the Supreme Court did it. They struck down the tariffs, and now people are wondering, now what? The Dow finished the week up barely 0.3%. S&P was up 1.1%. The NASDAQ up 1.5%, and the MSCI International EAFE Index up 0.3%. Year to date, International still leading the charge with the EAFE up 8.1% overall. Dow's up around 3.3% year to date. 10-year Treasury holding steady at 408, which was certainly interesting given that decision. Not much happened, but we'll see next week what's going on. Oil well over 60 at 66.38 a barrel. So the Supreme Court repealed essentially the IEEPA tariffs, and the question is, how broadly is that going to affect the economy? For financial markets, the overhang of the decision by the Supreme Court, well, now it's behind us, and that's the reason why yesterday, we didn't see much going on when this decision came down. Silver lining is that the 10% tariffs that were announced are right in line with current tariff rates. Well, the administration, as they work through their investigations over the next 150 days, we're going to be running into the U.S. midterm election season. Now, when we come back, this is a new topic. I'm excited to talk to you about it. It has to do with your retirement account. And the question this morning is your retirement account protected from creditors? We're going to come back and talk about that. You're listening to the Protect Your Assets show with David Hollander. That's me, the Sandman. We'll be right back.
Times are changing. Some would say they've already changed. And how do you actually protect your assets? David Hollander's Protect Your Assets events focus on common financial concerns that individuals and families face in retirement. Things like how to prepare for unexpected medical expenses and ways to create income to help support your desired lifestyle. Join us at our next free event to learn how addressing these concerns can help you feel more confident about the days ahead and help you sleep better at night. Just go to pyaevents.com and reserve your seat today. That's pyaevents.com and sign up or join the wait list today. pyaevents.com. Now, back to Protect Your Assets with David Hollander, the Sandman.
Welcome back. I am David Hollander. People around here call me the Sandman. And this morning we got a great question which has to do with your retirement accounts. And I've been hearing about this for a long time. I didn't really know the answer. And so I went and researched all about it yesterday. It was going back to my roots as an attorney and researching using LexisNexis and what's out there to figure it all out and read the cases. They're interesting. And so since I remember back to this in 93 when there was the O.J. Simpson trial, and that had wrapped itself up, and he was acquitted, and then he got the civil trial going, and then he lost that. And then remember, before he went to jail, he had the retirement accounts, which they couldn't touch, and there was a whole bunch of hoopla about it. And then over the years, I'd always hear, usually from my doctor clients, that their IRAs and 401ks were protected. And there usually wasn't a lot of worry about it. But that's not the case, as I came to find out. And so did some research and wanted to find out. And there's the question this morning: is your California retirement account protected from creditors? And so the answer is not really, not the way you think it probably is. So we're going to get into that this morning. We're going to read the law, look at some of the cases that are out there. There's still one big seminal case. It's called In Re Switzer, Switzer, that still is the benchmark when it comes to this subject. But then you throw into the mix this new law that got passed and in place last January. And it was Assembly Bill 2837, which further complicated the situation. So let's talk about this. The retirement accounts, which before AB 2837 really just consisted of an IRA, an individual retirement account, and SEP IRA is another type of IRA. That's what an individual sets up if he or she has a business. Maybe they're sole proprietor. And so it seemed like these were protected from creditors and judgments and things that would come at you, particularly if you were a doctor and you were practicing, you're worried about that. Now, where do you find this? The exemption, the statute itself in California is found in California Code of Civil Procedure. We call it CCP in the legal business. It's section 704.115. You can Google that and read it yourself. Subsection A3 says that a private retirement plan, including an IRA, is essentially exempt. But I'm going to read on and tell you more about it. So then remember, January 1st, 25, AB 2837, that passed, and it extended the coverage of 401ks and other qualified retirement plans. So for all of you out there who has a retirement plan, 457, 403B, pension, arguably those would be included in that definition of a retirement account. Go on and read the CCP section 704. We go to subsection B. It says that the assets of a private retirement plan are exempt while they are in the plan. And subsection D goes on to say that those assets are exempt when you start to take them out to live on. Okay, all sounding good so far. There's an exception, of course, that's subsection C, and that deals with alimony and child support. I'm going to come back to that because one of the cases we're going to talk about today involves that. There's no sympathy for those trying to dodge alimony or child support payments. So far, so good. A retirement account is exempt from creditors. Well, sort of, because now we're going to get into subsection E, and this is the one that a lot of people talk about. So I'm paraphrasing, but basically those accounts are exempt only to the extent necessary to provide for the support of the judgment debtor. That would be you. When the judgment debtor retires, and for the support of the spouse and dependents of, again, you, taking into account all resources that are likely to be available. There's a couple phrases in there that should cause you concern. Dangerous clauses, I'm going to call them. And there's two of them that we're going to analyze this morning. There are two clauses that are dangerous, that are discussed in these cases, which are of interest to me when it comes to the subject, is the first one, which is to look at the exempt only to the extent necessary to provide for the support of you, the judgment debtor, right? Because if you're going to try and, well, let's walk through this situation. Let's say you're out there driving around in your car and something bad happens and someone gets seriously injured. These are types of thought process we go through in law school. When you're sitting there in tort class, tort has to do with civil lawsuits and judgments and those kind of things. And so you're sitting there in class and your professor says, so, you're driving down the street and something falls off a building, hits your car, and then you hit something and then someone's not killed. They're maimed for life. And now you get a big judgment against you for millions of dollars. What are you going to do? Right. I mean, so this is sort of the analysis you go through. And of course you have insurance. But how does that really work? Well, whatever the limit is of your policy, the attorney is, of course, going to go after that. And so just assume you had a $300,000 or $400,000 or $500,000 policy. And so that's going to get paid out if there's a multi-million-dollar judgment. And then where does that creditor start to look? Well, they start to look to your personal assets. So if you have a house or a rental property, and in this case today, we're talking about retirement accounts, like your 401k. Can they come after that? I see your wheels spinning, right? You're thinking about it. I don't know. Can they? What do you say, Sam? Well, they can. And so we're going to look at these cases today and talk about this. But the reality is, yeah, those assets are potentially now available. And so this first clause, which is looking at the support that you need, how much money do you and or your spouse or dependents, here's the question, need to live on in retirement? That's the question. You should write that down. That's that first part of this thing that we're going to talk about today. We're going to look at the cases and see what they say. This clause also requires some calculation as to your earning potential and your ability to rebuild your retirement account before you retire. On the other side, if we look at this closely, which we're going to look at another case today, if you're nearing retirement or you're already in retirement, then there is a chance that your 401k, your retirement account, could be protected to some extent. We'll get into that. So it's an interesting subject, right? There's a lot to talk about. You're going to see that there is really no answer, and that's what makes it tough. And so if you're concerned about this issue, you want to walk through this with someone who's got experience on litigation and protection of assets. After all, this is called Protect Your Assets. It's the name of our show. It's our brand. You can go listen to our podcast out there. This is what it's about. If you want to talk to somebody right now who knows about this, who can walk through this with you, call us. We're here this morning, 866-PROTECT. The number to call, 866-776-8328. You have a free consultation. We'll walk through it with you. 866-PROTECT. Coming up next, what else do you need to know about protecting your asset? After all, it is our They Say segment where they say your 401k is protected. Is it? Find out. We'll be right back.
Take the first step toward reaching your financial goals and get the information that can help you live a confident retirement. That first step is going to pyaevents.com and signing up for our next free event. That's pyaevents.com. Now, back to Protect Your Assets with David Hollander, the Sandman.
Welcome back. I am David Hollander, also known as the Sandman, and you are listening to Protect Your Assets this morning. And the big question this morning is your retirement account protected from creditors, particularly if you're at or near retirement? A lot of people think it is, but I have bad news for you. It might not be. So today we're talking about that subject. We're going to be getting into it, about the law and some of the case law out there, and what you need to know if that's something that you're concerned about. Before we get into that, we are doing our Tax Smart Retirement Workshops. This is a update on tax laws, tax planning, and what you can do right now to pay less in taxes on that income and money you're earning in your accounts. What are some of the strategies and techniques that we're doing right now for our clients? Well, if you want to find out, why don't you come have dinner with us at several locations around the Bay Area this month? We're doing several workshops that hopefully are near you, and you can show up, have a great dinner, and learn something, hopefully. How do you do that? Well, there's a couple ways to do it. One is you could go to our website, libertygroupllc.com, libertygroupllc.com. You click on the events tab at the top, and that'll bring you to a page where all of the workshops are listed. And so, like I said, we're going to be in Walnut Creek. We're going to be in Danville. We're going to be in Alameda. We're going to be in Benicia and Trader Vic's, one of my favorites, in Emeryville, Novato. So all over the Bay. And if you want to come, again, you can just click on that blue register button. Sign up right there for the event. You're welcome to bring a friend as well, as long as we have space. And if you just want to call and get yourself on the reservation list, then call 866-PROTECT, 866-PROTECT. So this morning, we're talking about this really big question, which is your retirement account protected? And for those of you who missed the first part of the show, where you find the law on this in California is California Code of Civil Procedure, CCP, Section 704.115. And that was updated recently with Assembly Bill 2837, which is now effective. And the question is your retirement account protected from creditors? So we went through the basics of that. Now, law is law. But case law is usually what talks about what the law means or what it says, and judges have a lot of interpretation, and what they say typically is the final word. So now it's time for one of our fan favorite parts of the show. It's called our They Say segment, where we debunk common myths, half-truths, and sometimes just bad advice that they say.
Who are they? What do they know that I don't? And what are they saying this week? Here's David Hollander, the Sandman's answer.
All right, so here's one they say. They say that a 55-year-old doctor's IRA is creditor-proof. Is that true? I hate to say it. Probably not. What do you mean? You just went through the law and it says it's exempt and protected and blah, blah, blah. Well, there's more to the story. So let's start out with the seminal case, which is still out there, called In Re Switzer, Switzer. Richard Switzer was 60 years old, and he was married to Betty. Richard was employed as the VP of a furniture company, making about $120,000 a year. Betty, she was unemployed. Switzer has approximately 5 years to go until he's retired. He testified at trial that he intended to retire soon, as soon as the bankruptcy was concluded, in fact. because he had a skin condition and circulatory problems in his legs that make it increasingly difficult for him to travel in his capacity as the vice president of sales for the furniture company. Switzer also testified that there is a distinct possibility that he's going to lose his job before he can retire at age 65 because the employer is laying people off as a result of all the cheap furniture made in Asia. So now, given the fact that Switzer's 60 years old, his opportunity to obtain other employment if his job is eliminated, well, it's going to be tough. Let's face it. At least this is what the court's saying. I'm paraphrasing now, making some of this up, but you can go read this for yourself. Interesting fact so far, right? There's also little chance that the debtor in this case, again, that's Switzer, will be able to regenerate his retirement asset, in this case, an IRA account, from his salary, because when you look at his monthly income after taxes, it's about $6,500 a month, but his expenses, this is what I always wondered as I read these cases, his expenses are $8,300 a month. Now, he has his residence up for sale, and if it sells, he's going to break even. He's not going to make anything. He's not going to lose anything. I always wonder how that happens, too. It happens. And so if he eliminates his mortgage payment and the housing expenses that go along with that home, then that should help his monthly expenses drop. And he's testified that his medical expenses right now are about $750 a month for the skin condition. It's not covered under his medical plan. I'll just throw in there, what if he loses his job? What happens to his medical benefits? Question, huh? His monthly housing allowance is $2,000, according to the court. And after that, the expenses will be around $5,008.59. Now, he owes money to creditors, and that's why they're coming at him. So again, how does that happen? Well, maybe something happens. That's an accident. You get sued. You owe a lot of money to somebody, and now they're coming after you. And your policy wasn't enough to cover the judgment or the attorneys and all that. I mean, it can happen. So is his retirement account protected? Well, in this case, Richard is claiming that his 401k and his rollover IRAs and KEOs, that those are protected. Now, if you add those all up, all those accounts up, it's about $500,000. And he was claiming, of course, that CCP Section 704.115 and also the federal bankruptcy section 11 U.S.C. section 541C2. Those are the law. I'm just reading it for you. You can see whatever anyway. So the court asked the issue, is those retirement accounts, are they excluded from the creditor's ability to go after them in this proceeding? And the court held the following. Now, again, this is the seminal case. This is the most liberal case that's out there you're going to find as we go through this. The bankruptcy court said that the $500,000 of his accounts, his retirement accounts, were protected. Why? Well, the debtor and his wife were receiving Social Security. The court noted that it was enough with the retirement account and the distributions off that account, which they calculated, by the way, to enjoy a, quote, reasonable standard of living during his retirement, which, again, they looked at his life expectancy of about 18 years. So they ruled that the $500,000 was protected, but he had another $100,000 that was in a retirement account that was not protected and that the creditor could take. And from all the cases that I read, the $500,000 that the court protected in Richard Switzer's case is the largest amount that has ever been determined to be exempt under Section 704. It's the high water mark. But does it mean the whole thing's exempt? Probably not. And here's why. This is what's interesting. When you go read the legislative intent, this is the assembly talking about them creating the law and what they want to do with it. They literally have these kind of conversations. So I'm quoting this. This is that subdivision E we were talking about, those dangerous phrases. They say, this is what the assembly's saying. This is what the people who wrote the law are saying. They require that the court consider all the resources, such as Social Security payments, pensions, any other income assets like real estate, as long as they're likely to be available to the judgment debtor. This is Richard Switzer again, or anybody like that. They're going to look at also the number of years before you're going to retire. The court should take into account not only all the assets of the debtor at the time the exemption is claimed, but also all the assets and income, including pension rights, that, in this case, Richard is likely to acquire prior to retirement, end quote. That's literally the language from the people who wrote this law. So I'm going to call that extremely dangerous because if you're thinking that your retirement account is protected just because it's a retirement account, I got news for you. That, quote, extent necessary, taking into account all resources that are likely to be available, well, that's a problem. That could be a problem for you. And so when we go to analyze whether or not your 401k is exempt from a creditor, even when you're in retirement, because you could be retired, we need to look at some other case law to see what's out there. So when I come back, I'm going to look at a couple other cases. I probably have time for one more, which we'll get into, which is another interesting case. You're going to like this one. To answer the question, is your retirement account, is your 401k protected from a creditor if something were to happen and your policy wasn't enough to cover the damages? When we come back, find out if you have kids and a spouse, if that matters. You'll see. We'll be right back.
Times are changing. Some would say they've already changed. And how do you actually protect your assets? David Hollander's Protect Your Assets events focus on common financial concerns that individuals and families face in retirement. Things like how to prepare for unexpected medical expenses and ways to create income to help support your desired lifestyle. Join us at our next free event to learn how addressing these concerns can help you feel more confident about the days ahead and help you sleep better at night. Just go to pyaevents.com and reserve your seat today. That's pyaevents.com and sign up or join the wait list today. pyaevents.com. Now back to Protect Your Assets with David Hollander, the Sandman.
Welcome back. We are talking about protecting your retirement account this morning because there is this rumor out there that it's protected, that they can't touch it. That if you're a doctor and you have a retirement account, you're good. Not true, as we're talking about this morning. If you're thinking about retiring and you have a retirement account and you're wondering if it's protected, don't assume anything. And that's been the topic of the show this morning. We've been covering that question. Is your retirement account protected in California? The answer is, it really depends, but probably not to the extent you think. This whole show, we've been talking about whether or not your retirement account is protected from creditors. And there is a California law that's on point when it comes to this subject. We've been analyzing the law and the cases that interpret that law. And as we covered last section, when you look at this question, all of your circumstances, the present and future, are going to be taken into account as they analyze this question, the court in this case. So let's say that you have many years and you created a retirement protection trust. Maybe you went to Nevada, maybe went to the Cook Islands. You set up asset protection things. Like people usually with several $1 million do this kind of thing. So let's say you did that. Well, if you could access that and have that as part of your income, then your retirement account's definitely not going to be protected because that's another asset that the court's going to consider that's available to you. Or let's say that you have another, in this case, retirement plan, pension plan, which you're able to draw on in retirement. It's exempt under the statute, but as the court analyzes the factors that we were just talking about, a retirement plan, a California retirement pension in this case, well, if you claim that your IRA is exempt or your 401k is exempt, no. The chances of that being the case, it's basically zero. There's another case I found here that deals with a guy. His name's Mr. Welter. He set up a partnership and LLCs and all this kind of stuff, and he owed about $5 million. And he had an account at Morgan Stanley, an IRA, in fact, that had some money in it, about $164,000. And he was arguing that the IRA is exempt under the statutes we've been talking about this morning. And at the time of the hearing, he was 75 years old. He was retired, and he had a heart condition requiring 3 medications. He was unmarried, but supports 3 minor children, ages 8, 8, and 11, and their mother, who was age 49. The children's mother was receiving Social Security of $800 a month per child. Welter had debts of about $5.7 million. He owned 2 cars. He had a business property in San Juan Capistrano. It had no equity in it, of course. And he had a life estate in the condominium that he was living in. This guy's sophisticated. He had Social Security income about $1,286 a month, and he was working part-time, earned about $600 to $800 a month. The court was asking, where'd you come up with the $8,204 you need to live? When you do the math, it doesn't really add up. And he was claiming, of course, that his IRA is exempt from this creditor who wants their millions because he just doesn't have it. Of course, the court talks about the Switzer decision we were just talking about, and they said that the 4 factors seem to favor him getting this exemption because he's 75, he's retired, he's got dependents, and the amount of the judgment can never be repaid. It's just, the court's just saying it's not going to happen. And as you read the facts, yeah, it looks that way. But here's the thing. Welter failed to provide copies of his retirement plans, his account statements, his banking records, his title and his asset values, his agreements for child support, tax returns. Sorry, buddy. Not protected. End of story. So the point of this exercise this morning is the following. It is difficult to predict what part of your retirement account will ultimately be determined to be exempt, depending on some of the factors like how many years to retirement, what are your needs going to be in retirement, and what other income sources do you have in retirement. What is not at all difficult to determine is if you have enough to take care of yourself, your retirement account, it's going to be subject to creditors and not protected as you might have otherwise thought. So I hope you enjoyed this show. Big thanks to the Protect Your Assets team for putting together an interesting show today. My executive producer, network manager, Kevin Rentfer. And of course, all my fabulous producers back there, Dylan, Nick, Phil, Raph. Because without my team, I'm just another pretty voice on the radio. You have been listening to Protect Your Assets. I am David Hollander, the Sandman. Go out and make the rest of your life the best of your life.
Investment advisory services are offered through Liberty Wealth Management, a registered investment advisor. This podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be relied upon as a basis for investment decisions. The strategies mentioned are not suitable for everyone. The information expressed does not consider your specific situation or objectives and may not be appropriate for all investors. Past performance is not indicative of future results. To better understand the risk associated with investing and how it reacts to different market conditions, listeners should always consult with their qualified investment professionals, financial advisors, legal legal or tax specialists and conduct their due diligence before making any financial decisions or taking any action. The legal information provided on the air is not intended to substitute for callers hiring their lawyers to advise them about personal legal matters. Investments involve risk and, unless otherwise stated, are not guaranteed. Liberty Group LLC paid for the following program, and the host's views and opinions do not represent those of the station or its ownership. California Life Agent number 048569. Persons engaging the services of one affiliate of Liberty Group LLC companies should be aware that each company is operated separately. You are listening to the Protect Your Assets Radio Network.